Hey everybody, it is now Wednesday, December the 6th. Happy Feast of St. Nicholas Day if you're into things like that. Krampus came last night, and tonight's when St. Nicholas comes, not Santa, but actual St. Nick, when we celebrate the guy that we turned into Santa Claus, his martyrdom, I guess. If you're, again, into those kind of holidays, I just think it's neat studying the history of the saints and stuff, especially ones that we got holidays from. Anyway, this is now the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4th, can't even remember, day of Advent, 6th day of Christmas, and what I want to talk to you and myself, I guess, tonight is basically yesterday, if you watched the video, I talked a little about the weather and rain and how that relates in my mind to kind of sadness and the importance of allowing ourselves to be sad when we're grieving, especially during the holidays. Not necessarily too much, not to let it consume us, but that sadness, just like the rain, it can be a blessing as much as it can be a curse. And so kind of going along the same theme of emotions, I guess, I want to briefly talk about, I guess, confusion and kind of this sense of being lost and the sporadic nature of grief. I have, now with my little brother Andy dying, which I can't remember if I said in the first video, I think I did, but my dad passed away in 2009. He was 50. My mom passed away right after Christmas of 2010. She was 46, and my brother died in April. And when I say little brother, I don't think that he was 12 or anything. Still tragic, but I don't want you to get the wrong mental image. He was definitely a young adult. He was 23, again, super young still. But ever since he passed away, and he was my only sibling, I've been experiencing some really unique things in terms of suffering and grief that are far different than mom and dad. And you would think by now, having lost both my parents 7 and 8 years ago, and losing another 6 or 7 family members in the 2 or so year period around my parents passing away, that I would be well acquainted with the way that the grieving process works. And the more that I suffer, the more I realize, and this is kind of my advice for the night I'll give to you early, is that you need to understand that there is a basic layout of grieving, only in the sense that there is a basic layout for a book. A book has 2 covers and pages in the middle with words, sometimes pictures, and that's really about it. Every book is a different genre, different style of writing. Some horror novels, kids novels, fantasy, sci-fi, essays, poetry, but the basic thumbprint is the same. It's the same with people, black, white, tall, short, fat, skinny. We're super different, but we all have a head on our shoulders and 2 eyes and a mouth and a nose and ears on the side. And so in the same way, grief has kind of the same procession, but it's very different, I'm finding out. So when you lose a father as a young man, it's one thing. When you lose a mother, it's another. When you lose your younger brother, it's a completely different thing. And I'm sure I would be experiencing another type of grieving if I'd lost a sister, or if my brother was older than me, or if I'd lost my mom first, or if my mom had died from a way other than suicide. So everything compounds on itself, and our lives are so unique that I definitely can't tell you exactly how to go through the holidays. You have to figure a lot of it out on your own, because your process of grieving is uniquely different than mine. But it is interesting. Right after my brother died, one of my aunts sent me this thing, and I'd heard analogies of kind of death and suffering before, but I'd never heard this one, and I think it's really astute. It's a good observation. It's very well observed, and that is that grieving is like a shipwreck hit by a tidal wave. If you've ever seen the 70s film The Poseidon Adventure, one of my favorite movies, It's about this giant cruise ship that gets hit by this rogue wave, capsized, and then as it spends hours sinking, these, I think, 6 or so passengers have to work their way up to the bottom of the ship, which is now the top, to try to escape. And so this analogy is that grief is somewhat like that, that the wave hits out of nowhere when you initially lose someone, and there's wreckage everywhere. It's hard to breathe, you're struggling, you're fighting for air, you're trying to make it to the surface, and then, as the wave goes away and you've escaped the wreckage of the ship, things calm down. But every now and then another wave will come and hit you out of nowhere, and for a lot of people that wave is holidays, that wave is special days marking the person you've lost, birthdays, anniversaries, what have you. And I think that's very accurate. And so right now what I'm going through is the realization that I knew November would be rough, but I didn't realize how rough it would be, because in the same week I would have my brother's birthday and Thanksgiving. I didn't realize that would carry over until into December, because typically I'm pepped up by Christmas time. And again, I think part of this is kind of just the mood that I've been in, alongside of the weather getting suddenly cloudy and cold, which, even though I love, does, like I mentioned, add to my kind of nostalgia and my introspection, alongside certain shows I'm watching, and it just compounds. But what I would encourage you in tonight is that if out of nowhere you feel sad, or you're confused at why you're feeling the way you do, that's okay. Grief is not linear. Grief is a circle that loops back on itself several times. C.S. Lewis said grief is a valley, and you'll come around a curve in the valley thinking that you're going somewhere new, and you realize you've been there before. My brother passed away in April, and May I was blessed to get to go to Germany for 2 weeks. So May wasn't that bad. June wasn't that bad. July was pretty bad because my birthday's in July. August and September weren't that bad. October was mildly okay, and then now, November, December, 7, 8 months later, it's suddenly, I've had so many days where it feels like my brother just died yesterday. And it's very hard for me to process this and comprehend. I'm very lethargic. I'm getting very, I don't want to say depressed, but just very confused and lost, as if I'm wandering through the forest, and I don't know where I am, because grief is like that, and it hits you over and over like a ton of bricks. And so as we go into the holiday season, be aware, if you're suffering or grieving, that can happen. That can be a thing. You can, for example, wake up in Christmas. This has happened multiple times since my parents died. Christmas is fine. Christmas Eve couldn't suck, or the day after Christmas, or maybe New Year's Eve, which is one of my favorite holidays. Like, that's what sucks. Like, there's no rhyme or reason necessarily to grief, so be aware of that. And again, like I always say, reach out to people. There are people that love you. Comment on these videos if you're having an issue or something. I mean, I'll help you out. I'll do what I can. But we're in this together, and be encouraged that as if you are a believer, my word of encouragement would be that grief is not linear. Grief is a circle, but God, our God, is sovereign over the span of time, and so regardless of how lost we are in the woods, with kind of this procession of grief that we're going through, God is above all those moments and above that forest. And so, and this is something I'm saying to myself as much as I'm saying to you, just remember that, and remember that we have someone that can not only see beyond the forest, but can see beyond the day, and is planning those things out for us. So keep that in mind. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care. Again, happy Feast of St. Nicholas Day. And I apologize. I realize just now I've been talking kind of low. I'm trying to talk loud because I know I have a crappy camera. So grace and peace, guys. And I love you all. And again, we'll get through this day by day.